And dear sir, as far as I understand, this is the first time when you participate in the Eastern Economic Forum here in Vladivostok. What is the goal of your participation in this forum?
Well, this forum has been on for the last 5 years. Now I've been invited. I'm curious to find out more about this forum, its objectives, and what it can achieve. So that's why I'm here. And the theme of the meeting is also very interesting. So I would like to have my say on these issues.
And what areas of cooperation with the Russian Far East do you find the most promising? What will you be interested in?
What is that?
What areas of cooperation?
Cooperation, I think basically trade. Malaysia is a trading nation. We are always trying to find new markets, and we see that the eastern part of Russia may be a good place for us to have a market for our exports and to source some of the things from this part of Russia.
I see. And do you have any major projects in mind, or maybe making joint projects with the Russian Far East?
Well, not exactly with this part of Russia, but we have been talking to Russian companies about the possibility of their getting involved more in Malaysian economic development, particularly with foreign direct investment.
I see. And do you plan to sign any agreements during this forum with the Russian side?
We have no plan to sign any agreement at the moment, but we will see whether there is any need for that.
I see. And if you allow me just one more question. As far as I understand, you're going to have a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin later today. Do you expect him to pay a return visit to Malaysia in the nearest future? Will you invite him to visit the country?
Visit to Malaysia?
Yes.
Well, we would certainly welcome President Putin if he were to make a visit to Malaysia. It would be a continuation of the dialogue we have been having between me and President Putin in various other forums.
So the second set of questions is about the MH17 situation and the investigation that GIT made into it. You have repeatedly criticized GIT for being biased and politicized. Why do you think that this international investigation is biased, and why you criticize them?
Well, in the first place, it's not an truly international forum for investigation. It is heavily weighted on the side of the people who suffered because of this crash. So their views may not be fair and neutral. We need to have a neutral body to investigate. And the findings are also something that we cannot easily accept. Identifying who fires is very difficult. Identifying the missile, yes, but the area where it happened, that can be verified. But identifying the actual firing by whom, that would be very difficult in the usual circumstances.
You're talking about the neutral body. What do you mean? Should it be like elected or selected by the states concerned, or what the way to create a neutral body?
We should get experts from many countries who are familiar with crashes like that, for them to decide what actually happened. But when you have the countries that suffered because of the crash, obviously they are bound to be a little bit biased.
Have you heard about the investigation made by a private detective from Germany, Mr. Resch, who said that he has a set of evidence, and he would like to disclose them, and he's eager to hand it to different states, including probably Malaysia.
Yeah.
Have your government had any contact with him, or were your government contacted by him?
Not until now, we have not had any contact with him, but there have been publications and rumors about there being another plane flying at the same time. And all these things create doubts as to the veracity of the evidence used in the GIT. So we would like to hear, certainly, from anybody who has evidence of what actually happened.
There were publications about the fact that the United States tried to obtain the black boxes from the airplane. Can you confirm it, and what communication did your government have with the United States in this regard?
Actually, we claim that we don't have the capacity to really examine the recordings. So what we did was, after it was handed over to our people, we handed it over to the Dutch people, and they were the ones who actually opened up the recordings and read the recordings. We were not together with them when they were doing this.
So what is your overall estimation of the Dutch policy, or the Dutch steps that were made during this investigation? So you say that you exchange, you have some exchanges in terms of these recordings, and generally, how do you estimate the Dutch side during this investigation?
I'm not doubting their truthfulness, but there are certain things that they claim which is difficult for us to accept, particularly the identification of the people who actually fired the missile. That is very difficult for anybody to determine, because once the missile is fired, they can move to other places and things like that. But you can identify the parts of the missile and determine what kind of missile, or parts of the plane. You can show which part of the plane was damaged. But to say that you know who fired the missile, that is a little bit too much for us to accept.
So you and other Malaysian officials have repeatedly stressed that Malaysia was not granted enough access to the investigation. So have you officially requested wider access to the negotiations, and through what channels?
Mm-hmm. Well, now they have accepted that Malaysia might participate in the investigation, but this is after they had made their reports, and we don't know over the different space of time whether the evidence we can have access to would be factual or not.
Mm-hmm. And a question about the attitudes of the international investigation towards Russia. So Russia was actually accused by GIT that it had some connection to this tragedy. And why do you think that saying that Russia is connected to this situation became like a mantra in the Western media and Western government claims?
Well, I think their relationship with Russia, of course, is not in the best of terms. But on the other hand, the need to identify a country becomes necessary because of insurance claim. If you can identify the country responsible, then the relatives of the victims would be able to make insurance claim. And of course, the relatives are quite happy with the identification. They are not asking that, they are not doubting the report, because if it is Russia, then Russia would have to pay compensation for the incident.
But as you said, you don't have enough belief to the claims that Russia was responsible for that, right?
Yeah, that is our doubt. But I don't have any relatives being killed there. I don't have any rights to any insurance claim. But I'm seeing it as an observer from outside, and some of the findings made did not sound to me and many people in Malaysia as being quite right.
Are you going to raise this issue during your negotiations with President Putin?
Well, if the matter is mentioned, then of course we'll talk. But I don't think we can do much about it at this moment, because now Malaysia is involved in the investigation. We are going to see what happens.
And what will be the next step during this mutual investigation, which involves Malaysia?
Yeah, it is important to find other evidence pointing out to the culprit, the country which was involved in the firing of the missile. If they can discover from other evidence, then I think that would be legitimate, and I think the relatives of the victims would be able to make their claims.
So you consider the present evidence not sufficient to say who is responsible?
Yeah, it's not sufficient for us. It's very difficult to accept that they can actually identify who fired the missile.
Thank you for answering this set of questions, and we have some more about the Russian-Malaysian cooperation.
Yeah, so back to our Russian-Malaysian ties. Malaysia is one of the oldest Russian partners in defense area. So do you plan to expand it somehow? Maybe are you interested in supplies of new Russian armaments at the moment?
Well, we held an exhibition, aerial exhibition in 1991, where Russia participated, and we were able for the first time to see the abilities of Russian defense equipment. And since then we have examined the alternatives, either buying from the usual source, Western suppliers, or from Russia. We make no distinction between the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Malaysia is now using some fighter jets of SU and MiG, Russian fighter jets, but they are pretty old. Are you interested in the new ones, in the new family of these fighter jets, like SU-35 or maybe the latest one, which is SU-57?
Well, these are very expensive toys. We may find that they are too old and maybe not performing just as well as the new versions. But on the other hand, money is of great concern to us. Spending money on expensive fighter planes is not very productive for us. We are not going to war with anyone. But of course, we have to keep up the level of technology in our own defense forces, and we are looking into the possibility of getting new planes from Russia maybe, and also we are looking at other planes.
Okay, but if you're saying that